Give me your take on humanity, because you've seen the darkest corners of the world, and you've obviously one of your films got into human trafficking and following that as well. And with the monsters of the world, do you view this as like there's good and evil? Do you view it as like we're all capable of becoming pretty horrific given the right situation? If you're born in this Russian village and you're forced to go to the military, expect to go to the military, you end up with these generals and you end up doing these things, or just kind of on a broad, not necessarily specific to Ukraine, but like what's your take on some of these monsters or people who do horrific things? Is the hint of empathy for them, or is it just like, no, these are just bad evil dudes? Or what's kind of your...
I mean, I have to preface everything that I'm saying with the fact that I come in and I witness. So it's my take is probably going to be very different to somebody whose, loved one has been killed or
right,
they have
very
been
fair,
yeah, and I think we need to be respectful of the fact that this is just my opinion and
yeah,
I live that reality. But I call me naive, but I do really believe that the majority of humanity is not evil and that there is good in everybody.
yeah.
And I mean, I'm going to tell you a story that's not related to this film. It's related to another film that I made, and actually that was kind of where I felt that I saw almost the worst of humanity, and then something that sounds appalling, but I felt was where you can actually find good in almost anybody. So we were making a film about the sex trafficking of women from actually my native Bulgaria. So or where my mother's from. So we'd ended up we were actually in Greece next door to Bulgaria. And, we had been looking into these traffickers who groom these village girls from the age of, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These are just girls and they spend years grooming these girls. So then they're almost brainwashed. So it becomes much easier for them to then be sort of taken out of the village. And so what happens is that once they've been fully groomed, they are then essentially kidnapped, some of them seemingly by their own volition, but not. And then they are taken to what is called a breaking chamber, where they will spend 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks being broken. So the most horrific things happen to these girls there. And until they literally have no will to live and they will just do everything that they are told. And then they are either taken to, Western Europe, where they're considered to be, the good girls are taken to Western Europe, and the ones that are of less high quality remain in Eastern Europe. And we had spent some time with a trafficker who did the grooming, and he owned them. And he basically just said, no, these they're not girls, they're ATMs. They are just a means for me to make money. And he was probably the most dead-souled human being that I've ever come across. So like every time we did this big interview, we spent several days with him, and every time he looked at me, I literally felt like my soul was shivering. Like it just shivered.
Yeah.
He was a really despicable human being. And in a funny way, that was quite easy to understand. But then we moved on to Greece, and we met this guy who he did the breaking. So the girls would be passed on to him, and it was his job to drive the girls to the breaking chamber, wait for them to be broken, and then he would either drive them onto, Western Europe, or he would then help manage the girls that would then put to work on the streets in Eastern Europe. And it was also his job, if the girls got pregnant, then it was his job to take the baby and then sell the baby to those people that wanted to then have sex with the baby. And the baby would never survive. And so you look at those two people, and like on paper, who would you say is the most despicable human being? Whereas the guy who did, the last guy that I've explained, there was something about him. He was redeemable. He'd been a street kid himself. He was hooked on drugs. He was an alcoholic, and he was just like, what I do is terrible. He's like, I can't not do it because I will get killed. I've gone down a route, and I can't get out of it anymore. He's like, I will probably continue doing what I'm doing because there's no way out of it. But I'm going to tell you everything that I do. Maybe you can stop it. Maybe you can stop me. So there was something in him that just knew
Yeah.
that it was wrong. And, I don't know how you, I don't think that we even need to reconcile that. It's, he was doing despicable things and he knew that it was wrong, but he was not in a position to stop it.